Today's adventure takes us out to Austin, Texas, and we're going to meet up with Jamie Novak from Moreland Properties. Jamie is a great agent in the Austin area. She's done a lot of transactions out there and has a lot of history with the Austin market and is very well versed. Relocation is your move. We're all about connecting buyers and sellers with qualified agents all around the United States and the globe. So I'm welcoming Jamie Novak. So, welcome and thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Marv. Thank you for having me.
Hey, could you just give us a little information on your background, what your real estate experience is, and what you're seeing over there in Austin?
Absolutely. So I've been selling real estate. I'm going on my 12th year now. I came via a different little path than a lot. I came from high tech. I was in the high tech industry for 20 years before deciding to do something a little bit different with my career, but able to leverage a lot of the skills in finance and marketing and business acumen that I was able to learn and pick up in high tech, brought right into this industry. I have been with Moreland Properties since the pandemic because who doesn't make a change in brokers in the busiest time of the world, I guess. I sell in all price points. We really pride ourselves on offering concierge level service at all price points. So I service luxury, I service lot purchases and sales out in the country here, and just anything in between.
Well, it sounds like you're very rounded in having access to all those different market conditions. So, speaking of that, what makes your market unique or special, maybe compared to other areas of Texas?
I think I think the Austin market, and it's something that surprises a lot of people. It's really a diverse area, and I'm talking about from all aspects, from diverse as in different cultures and different backgrounds, diverse as in topography. You have downtown Austin, which is going to be very different if you drive 30 minutes out into the hill country of, say, the Spicewood area, where you're going to have more acreage and you're going to have cattle and you're going to have then you've got lake properties. So depending on what you want, Austin really has something for everyone. And I know that's something a lot of agents and brokers probably tout, but I think with Austin, it really turns out to be true. Again, depending on what your interests are, we've really got something that is for everyone. I think a lot of people are surprised when they get here. I think they're picturing Dallas or maybe even Houston, where it's a little bit more flat. We have these rolling hills, or you can have more of an urban feel if you go downtown. You can go north and you'd certainly find more the same topography and things that you might see in some of the bigger cities. But I think everyone that comes in for the first time is shocked to see all the variety of the different areas of town and what it offers.
So, if you were trying to tell somebody like these are the people that are coming, where would you say a majority of your buyers actually come from? Are they in state? Are they out of state?
Majority are actually in state, which I think surprises a lot of people, and I think, you and I have talked about it before, where I think you would assume they're all coming from California, and there certainly was an influx of Californians coming in during the pandemic, and after there's always been people moving from the West Coast into Austin, but I think it would surprise you to know how many people are moving into Austin, either as their primary residence or purchasing for investment or secondary homes, coming from other cities in Texas. Houston is a big one, especially out where I'm closer out to the big lake here known as Lake Travis. And you get a lot of buyers that are coming in from the Houston area, but also Dallas, Fort Worth, and San Antonio.
So, what would you say your market conditions are in Florida? It's been really slow, and now we're starting to feel a little bit more uptick. I think because we're so located towards hurricanes and that kind of thing, people get affected by that and they think, oh my. But every market is different and everything is local. So, how are you finding your market conditions?
I would say it's the same sans hurricanes. We have our share of storms, but not quite to the magnitude that you do. Last year, if you would have asked me at this time, it was like, whew. But I think the whole country felt that. It's always some uncertainty going into an election year, and we really felt that last year. So this time around, this time this year, I'm really feeling an uptick from where it was a year ago, probably where it's been for the last 2 to 3 years. We really saw some price correction, I'll call it, in summer of 2022, continued to really correct into 23, and then 24 second half a year we got hit hard, I think, with just the this not hit hard that we had some major downturn, that things really slowed down heading into that election, potentially more so than I think was anticipated. We've seen it recover from that. We're seeing some uptick, and particularly for this time of the year, it feels busier than it has for the last few at this time.
I think that our markets are very similar. Right now, we're probably our average days is probably 70 to 90 days on market, and our list price to sell price ratio is probably about 95%. And of course, you can attest to this during the pandemic. It was 3 days on market and 105% of lists. So are you seeing the same thing as far as days on market and that kind of thing?
Very similar. If you look at Austin and surrounding, Austin is a very hyper local market. And so you could have pricing variables that change street to street in some neighborhoods. It can be that dramatic. But for the most part, I think Austin on the whole is about where you are. It's about 60 days. Our prices are staying pretty stable from this time last year. You might go, and right now it's hovering at about 350, but again, that's if you're looking at Austin and all the surrounding areas and counties. It's a big, metropolitan area now. If you go into more of one of the local communities, like something that's a little bit higher in for the most part, more, higher acclaimed school districts, things that those prices are gonna go up a bit, that's where you might see a little bit longer days on market, but you're also gonna see a higher price range. Where we are, I'm out by the lake, it's about 850 right now is the average price, average sold price, and houses are staying on for just under 3 months. What's funny, as you said, since pandemic and it was 3 days, you still have sellers and buyers that I think have that ingrained in their brain, and they're going, "Oh my gosh, 60 days on market, what's wrong with that house?" And I'm thinking, "That used to be normal." It used to be normal, you put the house on the market, it might take 45, 60 days to sell, and now it's I think the pandemic really switched a lot of mindset for both sellers and buyers. Buyers are wondering what's wrong with it if it's sitting that long. Sellers are wondering why it won't sell that fast. So it's been kind of an interesting, an interesting, I don't know if you call it phenomenon, but interesting to see that still 5 years later playing such a significant role, those days on market. It's not changing what they are, but it's interesting to see the psychology of how people are thinking through that. Are you seeing the same?
I am. I'm seeing the same thing. The sellers are going, "Well, we ought to be able to get this," and it's like, "Well, let me show you what the statistics show," and maybe have a dash of realism thrown in there just so that they're not, their expectations aren't exceeding what the market is. But when we're talking about that, what would you say, do you have any areas that are kind of hot or maybe property types that are hot? Here, condos are down and single family homes are up. What about where you are?
Could give you a vague answer, and I would tell anyone this, and it depends. And it depends on what, buyers are wanting. It depends if you're wanting to be closer to downtown, you're wanting to be closer to the amenities that are associated with living close to downtown. Those neighborhoods are always hot, they're always gonna be popular. If school districts are your most important thing for you that to consider, the Westlake area is always gonna be super popular. If you wanna be out by the lake, you're gonna be out in Lake Travis. If you want some more room, you want some acreage, potentially Spicewood, first-time home buyers that are looking for affordability and great amenities and good schools, you might see them going a little bit farther north, maybe into the Pflugerville area, Round Rock area. So it kinda just it depends. It depends on what the buyer's criteria, what it and, we always ask, the standard, how many bedrooms, how many baths, blah, blah, blah. But I always really look at kind of you hear demographics and topographics and all those things. I look at psychographic. What interests you? What is driving you? What is your lifestyle? What's the most important to you? 'Cause some people don't care if they're house poor. They want to be 15 minutes from downtown Austin and close to the parks and all those things. Other people might have different goals. They might be later in life. They don't want to spend all their money on a house. They want some things that are important to them and their lifestyle, but they wanna look at affordability. So it just really depends on what the buyer needs are, but again, it goes back to good thing about Austin and the Central Texas area, we really do have something for everyone. It really kinda depends on what your interests are and what's important to you.
Well, that kinda answers the next question as well, is what types of properties do you see in the highest demand, and I think you kind of covered it there because it really depends on what the buyers are looking for. In your dealings, what do you see? Do you sell more single families than you do condos or townhouses or villas?
Yeah, I tend to, yes. And I don't know if that's just more of like my average price is about 1.5 million of what I sell. I do a lot of work with high tech. And those folks have, maybe a different threshold on their price than maybe what a first time home buyer teacher might be, looking for. But what I'm seeing in highest demand, it doesn't matter if it's a $300,000 purchase or a $3 million purchase. I see a lot of the same requests. They want bright and light and natural light and an open floor plan. Now, buyers more than ever, and you're probably seeing it in your market, Mark, they are very picky. They want turnkey. They don't necessarily want to do anything. And if they're going to have to do anything, it needs to be for a steal of a price. So, we tend to get to a lot of requests where you said that open floor plan, the white oak flooring, the lighter cabinets or countertops, um, very open and airy, a little breathing room. Nobody's wanting to be on top of their neighbors. And there's a lot of neighborhoods in Austin that offer that and give you that ability. There are some, depending on your price point, we may have to make some compromises. And what is going to be the most important thing? You may not be able to get everything, but what are the most important features we're looking for?
Well, you brought up some good points there, and I wanna bring in, a couple of properties that you were, directly related to, and it's funny because when I was looking at these, I thought, "Oh my gosh, look at all of that greenery, and look how beautiful that area is." So and I was surprised that when you told me that this was very close to in town, Austin.
Yes, that's probably 10, 12 minutes to downtown Austin from there. This is in West Austin. It's in considered what's the Westlake area. This is off a street that is one of the more affordable areas. With this house listed at 165, brand new construction. It's a really good picture of what a lot of the buyers are asking for. It was a very popular listing. We received multiple offers on it. Beautifully done, but I think it really shows that tells the story of what a lot of my buyers are looking for. A lot of, and not just my buyers, from what we see overall. But yeah, this is when we mean people want the hill country. So here you are, you're 10, 15 minutes from downtown Austin here, and you said it yourself, you thought it was way out in the country. And that's what a lot of people are wanting.
Well, before we go on to the next one, I wanted to say this. I really like the little stream that they created in the back, and I guess it's probably just recycled because I don't see it going to the other side of the fence, but it looks like it comes right out of the house and goes down it. So I guess that is a recycle, is it?
It is. So what that is, it was a natural wet weather creek that came through the property. The builder's brother actually designs water features for golf courses across the United States. So he brought him in for his expertise and they turned it into a functional water feature. And you've probably heard about the floods that happened July 4th weekend here in the Austin area. And that little feature got tested, put to the test because we had monsoon level rains for several days in a row. And it never went over the edge, functioned perfectly. But, so yeah, it was both functional and a really great aesthetic. People loved that when they came to see the house.
That's pretty cool. And what about this property? I love that this garage is separate. Um,
It is. It's a heated and air conditioned garage. And I think the owners at one point thought they were going to do some big things and put a gym and do all those things in there. And they ended up with grandkids that decided pretty quickly that that house was going to be outgrown. So they stayed in the same neighborhood, moved to a bigger house. That this is a beautiful 2022 construction. This is a little farther out of Austin. When I mentioned you're really in the hill country out in the Spicewood area, this is a neighborhood that's called Barton Creek Lakeside. It's a golf course community exclusive. Absolutely beautiful. The lots are anywhere from half an acre to an acre. That this is where you get a lot of that aesthetic that I told you is so popular. And you get a little breathing room between the neighbors, but you're still in a neighborhood, and that's probably a mix of maybe 60% primary residents and 40% second homeowners. A lot of those second homeowners, as we discussed, coming from Houston.
yeah, that's a nice setup there. And
It's beautiful out there, it really is.
and the last one I thought we'd share is this.
Yeah, yeah. So this one we sold actually a little bit ago. And this is right kind of between. You go from the closer into town out to Spicewood. This is right in the middle. This is out in the neighborhood that I live in by matter of fact. This is called Lake Travis area. It's a really top rated school district with the Lake Travis ISD. Again, this is a really popular aesthetic, kind of more that modern, not too contemporary, a little bit farmhouse, a little bit what we call a hill country modern, but you see that same theme, that tall ceilings, light, open, airy, light flooring, really, really popular. We've really seen that demand for the last couple of years. You do get folks that they don't mind having something more traditional, but I'll tell you, I'd say at least 75 to 80% of my buyers, this is what they're looking for. And if I have a seller that has something super, what we call dated, that darker, maybe more Tuscan, this is the direction I'm going to try to get them to go, especially in this market where buyers are so incredibly picky. I want them to have something that's going to appeal to the broadest audience. This is a perfect example of what appeals to a great audience. And Lake Travis area, there you see it right there. You're a block from the water and all of the water sports and things that a lakeside community offers.
That's really nice. I mean, it's like, being in Florida and, most of the,
Oh, right.
as if you go way out east, we're in the Sarasota market, but if you go way out east, you get into some of the farmlands and the larger lots. But, from my perspective, looking at that, that looks really nice.
It is. It's a big draw for sure.
So, one of the getting toward the conclusion here, what kind of advice would you give to somebody that might be relocating to Austin and they really don't know a lot about the area?
First of all, you want to talk to a seasoned agent. Of course, I would love to help them, but if not, talk to somebody that's lived in Austin for a hot minute and they really know the different neighborhoods and different communities and what they have to offer. We had a huge population of our agents grew during the pandemic. A lot of folks got their license. Find somebody to make sure that they actually sell a lot in the area. They know the area well because, as we've been saying this whole time, and as you've seen, it's a very diverse area and can change street to street in some communities. You want someone that once they understand their buyer's needs can really help them hone in on that search and help them find the neighborhoods that not just fit their price point and budget, but their lifestyle and what the things that are most important to them.
Well, one other question would be something like, and you might have covered this before, so maybe if you have, you can repeat it. But what would be something that people don't expect about living there that might surprise them? I think maybe having some of the areas so close into town, but still having some breathing room might be one.
Yeah, I think, yeah, the distances you can have this lifestyle where you have a little of that breathing room and still be 30 minutes from downtown, 40 minutes from the airport in a lot of different ways. You can do that east, west, north, south. The other thing I think that honestly surprises people, look, Austin's not all sunshine and roses. The traffic is legit. We boomed. We grew faster than I think the infrastructure was ready for. And so there's certain areas of town you would be shocked that it's as big as any metro I've ever been in. I grew up just, south of the Seattle area, so I've been in Seattle traffic. I lived in Houston for some time, which is a huge major, metro area. Austin will give them a run for their money some days.
Well, that's one thing that we don't have yet here in the Sarasota market. I mean, we do have traffic, but it's not like some areas. I had a buyer in town over the weekend from the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, and he was saying, "Where is everybody?" And I said, "Well, they're right here. What are you talking about?" He said, "I don't see any cars in front of us."
Oh, that's it. My dad lives up in a very rural part of New Hampshire, and if there's 4 cars on the road, he's getting a little stressed out. I'm going, "Oh my gosh," but look, you deal with it, because and they're getting better and better, and we're adding more tollways and things to deal with that, but you come to Austin for a lifestyle, and you're usually here for the all of the things that the area has to offer. You can put up with the traffic because once you're home, you're usually in a wonderful place that's serving all your needs, and you're happy here.
That's really good. Well, Jamie, I really do appreciate you spending this time today to share your expertise on the Austin market. And I know that there's people that are going to watch this that like to get a hold of you. So there's an 800 number down below, and we'll also put a link down in the description. So if you'd like to reach out to Jamie Novak over at Moreland Properties, I know that she would be more than happy to help you.
Oh, I love it, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Great. Thanks everybody for joining us today on Relocation. It's Your Move. And the next couple of videos we're going to bring to you is going to be from the Prague area in the Czech Republic. We're going over to the leading RE conference, which is the global symposium in Prague. And so we're going to meet up with some agents that are over there in those areas and see what we can find to bring to you all. So if you have a choice of going over in that part of the country, part of the world, we'll be glad to help you navigate that area as well. Mark Baming, Michael Saunders and Company.